Welcome to 101. I'm Greg Bassey, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper, and today we're starting our candidate interviews for the City Council elections coming up here in November. And it's a different political environment. There's district races this time. And today we have Kevin Lindsay, who's running in District 3. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So you have quite a challenge here. This is the first time that I can ever remember that we've got two incumbents running against each other, and you're sort of the third man in the race.
Exactly.
So while these guys are going to pummel each other, you're going to sneak in underneath?
Well, I hope so. Maybe I'll sneak in and they'll split the votes. And
or you'll be the voice of reason
yeah,
while they...
We'll see. Hopefully, number one, people come out and vote.
Right.
That's number one. Now, hopefully they'll vote for me, but just vote. And I'm pretty sure whoever they select will be good for the job, but hopefully it's me. So we'll see.
Now, District 3 is a classic Salisbury district. It's that Pinehurst neighborhood, part of Camden, Riverside Drive, Canal Woods.
Yes.
So when people think of sort of, not urban Salisbury, but suburban residential Salisbury, they think of District 3.
Yes, yes. And we have a mixture of the college students in here, too.
Right.
So it's very unique, different, from different age groups. I guess that is probably some of the challenge, especially for me coming in new, with getting my name out and getting people interested in voting. But it's a challenge that I enjoy. I've had experience working with the college kids, with coaching here and playing playing at Salisbury University. So we'll see what happens. But I'm ready for it.
The town gown issues, how extreme are they in this district?
Extreme, that's a great question. I mean, I guess it depends on who you talk to, what certain individuals want. I think where I am personally, and this is just my opinion, is that I live around a lot of individuals that are raising families. I have a daughter that's 8 and my son's 6. So I guess the concern that I have is just for the future of Salisbury. And that would be some of the main issues that I'm really concerned about. I'm not originally from here. I came back from Prince George's County, Maryland, and I want to raise a family here. So I think the issue, especially where I am, is the future of Salisbury, and then that's just that's why I'm running.
And you found Salisbury through Salisbury University?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I transferred here in '98 to play baseball. Played 2 years. Was a captain my senior year, and I learned a lot from baseball. I wasn't I liked school, but I graduated. But without baseball, I really believe not having that to say, hey, Kevin, if you're going to do this, you need to graduate. Without that helped me through a lot. It taught me a lot about adversity. And when you're a leader, people look up to you. And they come to you for questions when they don't want to go to the head coach. So, I think baseball taught me a lot between Coach Bennett, Coach Doug Fleetwood, Coach Ron Sides. Those three taught me a lot about just about life in general. So, I enjoy Salisbury. So.
And compared to your competition, you have a young family.
Yes, I have a young family. I have a young family, and one of the biggest reasons I got involved, since I've come back to Salisbury, I've always worked with the challenging population of young kids, between special education, juvenile services. I worked at Maple Shade Youth and Family Services, where I ran a group home. So I've seen those different kids, those emotionally disturbed kids, the kids that they want something. They really want somebody to believe in them, and my wife, the same thing. She still worked for juvenile services as a case manager in Worcester County, and we kind of understand that. In the recent death in August of Rakeem Russell, I know his mom. I worked with his mother, and that kid, he grew up. He would come over to my house, eat my food, drink up my juices, and run through my house. And so going to that viewing and seeing that, I sat down a week later and talked to my wife about it, and I said, I think this is something I want to do. How do you feel about it? And she said, Kevin, I really think it's a great idea. So I'm gonna give it a shot. So we'll see.
The youth in Salisbury have been a big issue. Our mayor said recently, warned people that if it's not nailed down, a kid's going to steal it in Salisbury right now. The kids are running all over town. There's been talk of curfews. There's been these meetings. What can be done to?
Well, I don't honestly. I salute the mayor and the city of Salisbury.
It just seems like it's more than a police matter.
Yeah, it's a Band-Aid, my personal opinion, of what the bigger issue is. These kids are looking for something to do. I think also we have a lot of resources out here I don't think Salisbury taps into, a lot of individuals that do work with youth, from the Jeremiah Mitchells, who has some nonprofits, to Sean and Gary Tuckers, who work with the kids and do a lot of things with these kids. We got to figure out a way how to touch into that. And I don't know what the answer is. I'm pretty sure if I do get elected, we'll put our heads together and try to figure something out. But there are a lot of kids out there. The majority of kids, when I worked for Juvenile Services, I worked the Ocean City Project, and those kids would come down and get in trouble. And the parents said, he's a good kid. And the majority of them are. Yeah. They just make mistakes. The problem is when they make that mistake, who's going to get the second chance? Who's going to look out for them? Who's going to say, this is right, this is wrong? It's a community thing. It's just not on the city. It's on the parents, your neighbor. And I wish we would get back to that. So I really believe that I understand what they're trying to do, but I think we could, try some other things personally.
Yeah, when I talk to candidates, I hear about infrastructure in downtown. I hear about hiring more police officers. I hear about getting tough on landlords. But I rarely hear, what can we do to help engage kids and engage these families and make them into better citizens. I rarely hear that from a political angle.
And I don't want to be political.
Yeah, I understand.
I want to be personable. I mean, I've seen, things happen in this world, and it really, like what I say with Rakeem Russell, you don't really put it in perspective till you really know somebody that's been through it.
Right.
Without the future, all this other stuff we're trying to do for Salisbury, which is great, it's not going to matter, in my opinion.
Right.
I really believe that we got to get the youth, the parents, to start believing in Salisbury what we have to offer. If we don't get that, all these other things we want to do, which are important, I just think I don't want to say it's not going to matter. It's just going to be more difficult to do. And like I said, working with the youth, working with the adults now at where I work at, they want help, but I don't know how, if they believe in the city, and that's difficult, especially when we got Easton 45 minutes away, one of the most successful small towns in the area. What are they doing? Why aren't we tapping? We need to figure out what they're doing right. They're doing something right, and we're 30 minutes from Ocean City. I don't understand why Salisbury couldn't be just as successful as Easton, but the future is key, in my opinion.
So you get elected, you're in the council. What's the first thing that you want to do for the residents of District 3?
What I like to do personally for District 3, I would like to bring something to the table where we can get our youth involved. I don't know, some type of committee that can come to the council, sit down and meet, say, hey, these are our concerns. Visit the local high school, have some individuals recommended to say, these are the things that are concerning me. This is what I want to see done. These are the issues that I'm dealing with. And those are some of the things that that'd probably be my number one goal. Okay, what's going on? What's working? Who you look up to? What kind of trouble have you been in before, and what worked? I love to get with Juvenile Services and see what we can do with them in Wycomico County. And I know Salisbury City does some things with Juvenile Services, but that would be my number one priority.
Now, you're obviously a smart guy. You can live anywhere. Why did you pick Salisbury to live?
Well, I told you I went to Salisbury, and that's probably more of a personal thing, in my opinion. I graduated in December 2000. I had the opportunity to go back to Europe to play baseball. At that time, my dad was 2 weeks away from passing from cancer. And once he passed, I had a lot of things going on. And Salisbury, for me, was like a safe haven. And I said, I'm going back. And I started coaching Coach Fleetwood basically gave me my first job here, and I worked at Parkside. I had friends still here. You know, the friends, I had friends back home, but I had the friends that, you know, I had spent 2.5 years with, that I played baseball with, that we went, you know, we were in tough games with, and, you know, I grew up with, that I admired, and I still see to this day. So it was more like a safe haven, and I'm glad I did. I met my wife and my family here, so that was probably more of a personal thing, but in the long run, it was probably one of the best decisions I've made.
Any place that the city's off track in terms of its leadership, like things they might be focusing on that they just should focus on something else, something you'd like to change in how the city kind of plots itself? I
don't have anything in particular. I did read something about the ordinance they passed with the chickens.
Yes, we're going to be allowed to have chickens now. Yeah.
I mean, and that's, I mean, and I know that's, for me, I wouldn't understand that.
Exactly.
Yeah. I know one of the young ladies that is running for district, I don't want to say which district, 1 or 2, she was one of the reasons that ordinance got passed. I don't want to pick on that particular one. I really believe more engagement with the community. I would love for the police to, you know, park their cars and walk the beats. I would love that. Get a better relationship with the community. And in the it's going to take some time, but I believe in the long run, it's going to help them. I know Cambridge is doing it now, where they're walking the beats, they're talking to the individuals. That would be something I would love to see. And you know, nowadays with the police and the, you know, 99.9 of them are great police officers. They try to do their best. But I really feel like some are just not connected with the community, and they need to be. I mean, you're protecting and serve. I mean, when I was growing up, you know, that's how it was. And I'm not that much older than, you know, I'm not saying I'm going back in the 50s, but I remember growing up when police were engaged. And I grew up in Prince George's County. You know, there's some tough areas there. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I have been mistreated, but I think for the most part, police are, you know, they, based on social network and everything you see on TV, they just get a bad rap. And one of the ways you can do that is, I'm going to park my car down the street and I'm going to walk up and down the block. Yeah. Say hey to everybody. How you doing? Anything, any concerns? What's going on? And then that criminal that sees your car driving down the street, maybe they won't have time to run off and get away from him. So that's one of the things I would like to see. Yeah,
we have an officer downtown, the big guy Bull. You know, now he could ride around the car and be doing gotcha stuff, but he doesn't. He gets around, he talks to people, people know him.
That's great.
And if you have a problem, you feel like you can run down to the corner and find him, that kind of thing.
Right.
And I just, you're right. I would like to see more of that throughout the city.
I would like to see with the county too. I mean, all of it. I mean, I just really think that, I think it would help. I mean, like I said, I don't think it would be easy at first. And I'm pretty sure maybe some of the police officers don't want to do it. Maybe they feel safer because it is different time. Maybe they do feel safer in their vehicles. But, you know, I wouldn't mind seeing that at all.
You coach Pop Warner football as well.
Yes.
Is that like the highlight of your week?
Yes, and when you coach, Coach Skeet and Mr. Vernon DeShields, we coached 19 to 20, 5, 6, and 7-year-olds. Tuesday, Thursday, Friday we practice. We play Saturday. And then when you coach, it's not like you see on TV and you're watching college. You're standing on the sidelines. You know, as coach, can you tie my shoe? Stop throwing dirt on your teammates. Stop picking at grass. I'm kind of the yeller too. I yell a lot. My wife gets on me about that. I do, but I don't see anything wrong with that personally. I think these kids now need some, because life. When you go out in life, you have to take orders from somebody else than your parents. So, but it is interesting. You know, Saturday my day will be up at 5, leaving at 6 to go up to Dover. So that is my week, and then between soccer and my daughter's in gymnastics, and now she's just joined the step team at school. Wow. It's Monday through Saturday we're running. So, but I enjoy it. I mean, I got talked into it, but I'm more of a baseball guy. But it was more about the kids. And they needed some help. Right.
I mean, it's not, we're not scheming against this other linebacker.
Right, exactly.
I mean, it's trying to get this kid's head right.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, give them some outlets, some exercise, something to do. And Some parents have them out there. They said, we want to toughen our boy up. That doesn't work. I mean, just playing football is not going to happen. But, you know, for the most part, I really think the kids enjoy us. My son did it last year. I enjoyed it, but I thought I could do more by helping coach, yes.
When you tell people you live in Salisbury, you're from Salisbury, how do they react and how does that make you feel?
I've never had a bad reaction. Yeah, they know that I'm close to the beach.
Right.
You know, I'm on my way down there. Can I crash at your house and,
right.
and wake up and go down? I don't, you know, I get a reaction that, you know, I have a lot of friends back home in Prince George's County that when I told them I was moving back, kind of looked at me like, why? And like I said, it was a personal thing, but I always felt it was just a slower pace. Not everybody's in a rush. It's not rush hour traffic. I don't have to drive 25, 30 minutes to get to the nice mall. I mean, but the reaction from everybody is, you know, I'm coming to visit. You're close to the beach. Let's hang out. But never had a bad reaction. Salisbury's a great city. I mean, I don't want to get the impression that, you know, Salisbury's not a great city. I love Salisbury personally. And my wife has been trying to get me to move back home for years, and I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. But I think Salisbury is a great city.
Anything I forgot to ask?
No, I think you were great. I mean, I'm excited for the opportunity. I was tired of getting on social networks and arguing with individuals about things. I said, you know, I'm
never win those battles.
Never win. I said, so I'm gonna give it a shot. So
Good.
if they can never say I didn't try, and I'm doing it for my two heroes, my two kids. Those are my heroes, and my wife. Without her support, I wouldn't be able to do this. But no, you did. You know, no questions you forgot to ask.
All right, he's Kevin Lindsay. He's running for City Council District 3. District 3. He's in against two incumbents, Jack Heath and Tim Spies. It's going to be an interesting race, and he's clearly made himself different in this race. So thank you so much for being here, Kevin.
Thank you.
And we look forward to watching you in the campaign.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Greg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent newspaper, another edition of 101 right here on PAC 14. Welcome to 101. I'm Greg Bassett, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper, and we're continuing our series of interviews today with city council candidates. And we have a member of the council here today, Jack Heath.
Greg, very nice to be here. Thank you.
Welcome, Jack.
Thank you.
They've changed the districts on you here, so you're the District 2 representative, which is most of the city.
Right.
You share that representation with others, but you're going to have your own district now in District 3.
Yes, it's exciting.
So it's going to be a very different thing.
It is. It was very strange when the vote came up. Three of us at the time, Jake, Day, Tim, and myself,
all lived in that district.
All lived in that district. And we knew that if this transpired, some of us wouldn't be there.
Right.
But it was the right thing to do for the city, and I'm glad we did it. I think it will give us better representation, and hopefully, certainly with a candidate running in each district and contests in most,
right.
It's proving out to be a good, positive thing.
Right. So there's three people running in your district right now, including another incumbent, someone who was elected. Now you were actually appointed to the council.
That's correct.
And I forget how you were appointed. When Terry Cohen left.
Terry Cohen left.
Right.
And then they advertised for the open position. I said that I was interested, and I was interviewed by the council along with, I believe there were 14 or 15 other people. And that's how I got my appointment.
And you had run in the previous election.
I had run in the previous election.
So we all knew you from that.
Yes, yeah. And I'm fairly active in the community, so a lot of people know me from other
Right.
my other activities.
Now you have heroic service from Lower Shore Enterprises, going way, way, way back.
Yeah.
One of the great institutions in this town.
You know, I was in the private sector for years and years and years, and ran a multinational company for the Dutch, and it was good. It was a good experience. And then after I retired, my wife told me that it wasn't time for me to retire. So seriously, I heard about the job at Lower Shore, and I knew nothing about that business. But I did have a sense and a desire to give back and share some of the things. And I know that they had some issues that they were dealing with at the time. And they specifically did not want someone who was involved with their business. They wanted someone with a clean set of eyes coming in. And I will tell you that for the years that I was there, it was the most rewarding experience I've ever had. Now I serve on the board of directors, and I'm there probably at least once a month on Hot Dog Day.
Right.
But I still go back. I still see the clients. They still know me, and I have very, very fond memories of that.
Right. We had Bill on, the guy who is the executive director now.
Yes, Bill Turner.
Bill Turner, right. And he encouraged me to come out for Hot Dog Day. I'd been to Hot Dog Day a long time ago, I think, when you were in charge.
Yes.
And it's one of those life-changing afternoons.
Yeah, it's the hook.
Yeah.
If you go to Hot Dog Day, I will guarantee you'll be part of that group for the rest of your life. And a lot of people have done it.
Just amazing.
Yeah.
Just amazing the positive stuff that goes out of that. So you've extended that with your service in the community. And
Yes.
one of the things that has intrigued me about seeing you on the council and hearing you, especially during the budget process, is you really brought a businessman's perspective to what was going on with the spending plan.
I think that's one of the advantages that I bring to the party. Because of my business experience, and especially with budgets and budget control, but more importantly with strategic planning and goal setting. Quite a few of the departments that we have metrics in place to judge how they're doing, but some of them did not have that, and I think that's a cultural thing.
Right.
How do you tell how well you're doing unless you can measure it?
Right.
And a lot of the issues that come up with that and issues that are brought up are, it's difficult. I can't put a metric to judge how I'm doing because I have this non-metric, non-number business that I'm in. That's not true. There are metrics. You can find metrics in just about anything. I think it does two things. One, it allows you to see, and allows us as, if you want to say, the city council oversight. It allows us to actually see how well you're doing and see how well you're using your budget. And two, it brings a sense of accountability. And accountability is good. I don't care what field you're in.
Right.
Yet there has to be some accountability.
Right. I detected too where you would talk directly with department heads in that budget process, and they would give out numbers, and the rest of the council would sort of nod, and you would ask a level of detail which they didn't necessarily have at their fingertips, and
Yeah.
they'd have to go get it. I'm sure they weren't trying to snow you or anything,
No,
but it was just that you were paying close attention and asking the questions that needed to be asked.
Yeah, I'm not a line for line guy.
Right.
But in terms of what I consider to be the most critical pieces, I tend to dig a little bit more in that.
Right. Your district, District 3, is the classic Salisbury residential district, Pinehurst, Riverside, those neighborhoods.
Right.
But also the colleges there. There's the town gown issues probably more than any other district. How are things going with town gown?
It's going pretty well. I've met several times with Robbie Sheehan over at the university, and am pleased to have been told about some of the things that they're doing, the initiatives. For instance, the compact between the landlords and the school, that they can get preferential rights to come in and talk to the students for housing if they meet certain criteria.
Right.
That's a critical piece of the puzzle.
Right.
And the other thing is, during orientation, they spend time talking with the students about their responsibility as citizens
Right.
of Salisbury. And I think we're making great strides. I don't think we're there yet totally, But I think if you look at the statistics again about the number of complaints, noise complaints, and those kinds of things that have happened, if you look at that in towards the end of last year, there was significant improvement.
Right. Now, people will argue that a lot of the landlord problems that were in town were really focused in that college neighborhood and shouldn't have been applied throughout the city. And that's sort of coming around as an issue again, that maybe they need to create a college district. Any thoughts on that?
Government sometimes, in my opinion, gets involved in too many things. I think that it's best if you let the people who are involved work it out. Provide support, provide guidance, but essentially let the individuals work it out. I'm a big believer in consensus building. I believe that if you put the right people around a table and they're civil, they'll come up with a solution, their own solutions. And let's face it, a real estate broker, a landlord, it's a business. And,
right.
And the accountability for that business should be the same as it is for any other business. So while we have passed legislation that guides them to what they can and cannot do, it's our responsibility to make sure that those things are upheld. Because it's like everything else. You spend 90% of your time talking about less than 5% of the population.
Right.
And what about the other 95% that are doing a good job?
Right. That's interesting. A lot of focus lately on kids in town.
Yeah.
The talk of the curfew,
Yep.
some of the petty crimes that are going on.
Yep.
Mayor made a statement in our paper recently that if it's not nailed down right now in Salisbury, some kid's going to steal it. Just some weird stuff going on. What are your thoughts about what's going on with our kids?
Well, I think there's actually, if you look at the focus on my materials that I'm using during my campaign, the top two really are public safety and at-risk youth. And I think that they are linked as close as you could possibly link any two things.
Right.
And I think it's a complex problem. It's not a simple problem. Someone asked me recently, what do I think about the curfew? I think my answer was, and I'll answer it the same way until we get the issues resolved, the curfew is a tool that the police can use to protect the victims, the current victims that we have.
Right.
We've done a tremendous job over the last couple of years. The chief and the department have done a tremendous job in bringing major crimes down. In fact, on the juvenile crime side, it's out of control, and,
right.
and that's what we need to address. So when I look at a curfew, it's got to be a curfew plus something else. And what is that something else? That something else is not a government solution. The something else is a combination of government, business people, neighborhoods, churches, going back to the way that maybe it was in the 80s, where if you look at some of the things that were done with the Greater Salisbury Committee and some
right.
of these other things, where they took an interest in different sections where there were needs. A gentleman stood up at one of the curfew meetings and said, let's not forget it takes a village. And I agree with that.
Yeah.
You know, we have a lot of single mother families and single father families. We have 850 youth that have been identified in the schools that need mentors. Those numbers are ridiculous.
Right.
You know, all it takes, we could get 850 people, 850 to go in and spend an hour a week with somebody, it could change their lives. So I think it's a combination of all those things in order to address that issue. My philosophy is you can pay me now or you can pay me later.
Right.
It's a lot, first of all, it's a lot more fun and a lot more interesting to deal with third, fourth, fifth, sixth on up and mentor them than it would be to ask people to pay taxes to incarcerate the individuals when they haven't been engaged.
Right. Yeah, we just had Mark Thompson on the show, and he talked about the mentoring program that he's trying to initiate.
Yep.
Exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And he never really came out and said it, but he was he wanted to be kind of critical of the business community for sitting on the sidelines about this issue for a while and trying to get them pulled in, and he feels like he's making some progress on that. But I detect that too. The business people will kind of criticize Salisbury, and they don't know how to step in and try to help
I think that's
but mentoring
true.
is a good first step.
Mentoring is the easiest.
Yeah,
I mean, it really is.
yeah,
An hour a week. And most of the guys who end up doing it do it more than an hour a week anyway because they get drawn into the process.
right.
I think the other thing is that if you go back to the Dick Hazel days and the Frank Perdue days, Jimmy's doing the same things now, but
Right.
the Dick Henson, those larger than life civic leaders, we have a lot more smaller businesses now if you look around.
Right.
A lot of service businesses. We've lost a lot of manufacturing businesses. I think that's one of the other keys. We need to get the economy growing and get jobs back. And those jobs, it depends on who you read, but some people say that it's a 3-to-1 ratio of economic impact for a manufacturing job versus a service job.
Right.
If we can get some manufacturing jobs, we can do two things. We can raise the average wage, which then helps the economy. And the other thing we can do is maybe we can stop the brain drain that we have from the university.
Right.
It just sickens me to see the intelligent young people that we have and not have something for them in Salisbury.
Yeah.
And they leave.
It feels like there's more progress with the brain drain, but it's not.
There is, entrepreneur programs,
Yeah.
Shark Tank, all those things that are now being done, those initiatives are going to help the situation. But we graduate a lot of kids,
Right.
a lot of really smart kids. All 3 of my kids went to SU. All 3 graduated, one of them #1 in the class. I've got 2 who've remained in Salisbury and are both teachers. One became Wycomico Teacher of the Year.
That's right. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
That must be so proud.
Yeah, and my other daughter last year was named Wycomico Middle School Teacher
Right.
of the Year. So they see what Salisbury has. They've been here most of their lives, and I think there's great things for Salisbury coming up.
Right. It's obvious that you have great rapport with Jake Day,
I do.
which is ironic because you ran against him. You guys were challengers when he was elected.
Yes. Yeah.
How is that really? I can just tell that he respects you and he kind of leans on you for especially the fiscal advice.
Well, it's really funny. When we were running against each other, we would go and speak in forums, and the comments afterwards were always the same. It sounds like you could finish his sentences and he could finish your sentences.
I remember one of the chamber meetings, he got up and said something, and then it was your turn. And you were like, yeah, he's exactly right, what he just,
Yeah.
what he just said, and I kept hoping that you could go first the next time.
Yeah, well, the important thing is that it's said, and I think that's what we sort of feed off of each other. He's the youngest member on the council. I'm the oldest.
Okay.
So he gives me the energy, and I think sometimes he looks and says, okay, now, I don't know if he says this, but let's see how the old people would react to it. So
Right.
we tend to take different sources of information and put them together to come up with a good plan.
That's really cool. The county executive, talk about economic development, how important that is. The county executive has this initiative with creating a department for economic development. How can the city get involved in that and play along with this?
Well, we have to use the leverage that we have available to us between the 2 organizations. Now, everybody looks and goes, well, that's obvious, we should do that. That's not the easiest thing to do.
Right.
They have things that they have to worry about that we don't. We have to worry about things that they don't have to worry about. But my approach to the whole thing is very simple. What's good for the city is good for the county, and what's good for the county is good for the city.
Right.
There's got to be common ground that we have. There's got to be a way of leveraging in a lot of areas. Synergies are great if you take advantage of them. And generally when you have synergies, 2 things happen. Better communication, and generally you save money.
Right.
So I think if you go in with that attitude, then, and some things may work and some things don't, but to reject things out of hand just because it's city or county, I think is foolish.
Right. And it's funny that I think because Jake is dynamic as he is, I hear people say that maybe we should have consolidation, that issue's come back again like to create a whole system to fit a leader, perhaps, which doesn't make any sense.
No, leaders, we all come and go.
Right.
It's the concept and the culture that remains, and the position. So I think you have to be very careful when we talk about that kind of thing.
Right.
Doesn't mean that we can't pick pieces that work and work easily,
right,
and get them going, but it certainly is something that needs to get looked at. Any
questions I forgot to ask today?
No, I think I've enjoyed it. It's great. I can't believe it's over, but
yeah.
it's great. I'm looking forward to continuing on the council. I want to do it. I think good things are happening in the city. It's exciting. It's the first time that I've been excited as I am in many years. So I hope that the citizens feel the same way.
Great. Thanks for coming in.
Greg, thank you very much.
Jack Heath,
appreciate it.
He's running for City Council. He's an incumbent in District 2. He's running in the brand new District 3. And we look forward to seeing him more during the campaign.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent Newspaper, another edition of One-on-One right here on PAC 14. Welcome to One-on-One. I'm Greg Bassett, your host from the Salisbury Independent Newspaper, and we're continuing our interviews today with candidates for the Salisbury City Council, and we have an incumbent with us today, Tim Spies. Welcome, Tim.
Good morning, Greg.
Now, you're running in the new District 3.
I am.
And you're an incumbent.
Well, an incumbent for the former District 2. Yes, exactly.
Because you've been elected before,
mm-hmm.
and somehow you've been thrown in with another council member, someone who was appointed to the council, Jack Heath.
I have.
So you're running against him and a newcomer, Kevin Lindsay.
Yes.
All through that redistricting debate, I just have to say this up front, you were such a good sport about it. It amazed me. They were creating a situation where another council member could run against you, and you were a good sport through all that. I would have been really resentful.
And like I had power to overcome that, you know.
But still, just the idea that you invited the idea of a contest like that, I thought was heroic. I really did. Because you see these other politicians trying to draw things for themselves and protect themselves, and it just seemed like you were pretty cool on that.
In some places they call that gerrymandering. Yes,
right.
They do.
Right.
You know, it is what it is. You know, we had a, before the 5-district plan came about, we had another plan before that which would have extended District 1
right.
and taken one candidate or one council person from District 2 and it added it to 1. So it'd be a 3 and 2 instead
right.
of the 4 and 1.
Right.
It met all the qualifications of what the ACLU was asking for, but it was rejected at the mayor level and went to the 5-district plan after that.
Right. So this is going to be a really unique election. I mean, I don't remember anything like this with 5 districts. Certainly I don't know if the voter pool is smaller. I mean, you used to run, it was District 1 and then the whole city. So you were elected pretty much at large except for District 1.
Pretty much, yes. Yeah. 4 out of 5 were
right.
generally at large.
And now you'll be representing a tight neighborhood. So the neighborhood is the Pinehurst Riverside Drive and then around to Canal Woods.
Yes.
So that's when people think of residential Salisbury, that's actually the area that they think of, I think.
I think, you know, that's aside from the Newtown area, that's the most densely populated area and,
right.
and the oldest homes. So maybe it's the longest established, aside from some of the places on the west side.
Right.
Yeah.
So how's it been being a councilman? You're at the end of your first term, a little over 4 years.
I actually love it. From day to day, it's kind of a fun thing to do. It takes a lot of time, and people don't realize how much time gets really invested in it if somebody's working at it. You know, you could excuse me, just ride the wave and not
right.
do much of anything, just show up for the meetings, but that's not at all what it's about. You have to be on top of what, you know, what the needs are of the city, what the budget's looking like, read the correspondence, talk to the department heads, and it's work. It
right.
really is, yeah.
Right. I know I read the briefing book every week or every other week, and that takes probably a half hour just for me to read it. I don't have to act on any of it or think about anything that's in it. So I can imagine how much time it does take.
Well, I think we had a 172-page one not too
Right,
long ago.
right.
That was, yeah, that was a couple of hours.
I found myself doing scroll.
Yeah, and then, you know, when you read through it, you have to go to, oh, well, what's this about? And like go to a website and try to find out what the history is of this sort of, maybe if it's legislation, how it's successful elsewhere. It's not just, yeah, I think that's a good idea. Blink, you're done. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
You sort of, as someone who watches the council, I see you as sort of a voice of reason down there at the end of the table. Used to be at the end of the table. You're not quite at the end of the table anymore. But I found myself always waiting to hear how you were going to weigh on an issue.
Why was that?
Because you were always very calm about things and methodical, and you would offer kind of a different take on things. Probably maybe more common sense and definitely more erudite.
Well, I tend to think a little bit out of the box, but pretty much all of that is based upon research. You
Right.
know? And I'm a real big one for data. You know, what works someplace may not work here because we have a different demographic, we have a different commercial setup here. University plays in a lot of areas.
Right.
So anything that comes up before council, I really have to get into and find out what the real basis behind it is.
Right.
And when I open my mouth, I generally have something to say.
Right.
Not just opening my mouth to
Not
say,
making a
you know,
speech, yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. You know, and I think that one of the things I think I've done is maybe raise the level of understanding by viewers of what the council does. You know,
Right.
because I'll stop a department head and say, "Would you explain this acronym for the rest of the world, please?"
Right.
And I think people are a little better educated for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, there have been times on that council that have been kind of tense with the leadership and the back and forth. It seems like we're in a calm time now, but even when things were tense, you never seemed to get sucked into that.
What would the point be?
Well, other people would get tense.
Yeah, but tense is one thing, but you know, you keep your reason. You know,
Right.
I was in the Navy for 27 years, and I was you know, a senior leader, and you try not to get rattled
Right.
because that just detracts from everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And you were a bridge tender. I remember
I
this.
was a bridge tender. Yeah, there
Now-
were a group of us veterans that actually tended the Route 50 bridge and the Main Street bridge. That was fun.
See, bridge tenders fascinate me because one of the intern stories that you're always given is to go down and interview the bridge tender.
Really?
Yeah. And like especially like the bridge tender in Ocean City. And you find out the bridge tender's philosophies on life. And I've always been fascinated by these men who occupy these little booths over the water and interact with the guys on the boats and the traffic. And I just think it's a fascinating job.
In a lot of ways, it's like being at sea,
Yeah.
but you're not in a boat. You know, you get plenty of time to look out at the water and meditate on a lot of things.
Right.
And it was a fun job.
So, and that's changed. There used to be the 2 bridge tenders downtown.
Now there are no bridge tenders downtown.
How does that work now?
What happens if somebody wants to come through the bridges, go either north or south, they call the number, which is the State Highway Department, and within 4 hours they send somebody down there. I think it's worked out pretty well, to tell the
Right.
truth.
Because it's just basically the one grain barge that goes up through there now, right? Or,
Pretty much. You know, a few
Yeah.
pleasure craft go up there, but it's mostly the grain barges.
right.
Yeah.
The barges that carry the rocks don't go up there anymore.
No,
Yeah.
no.
That's interesting. So, accomplishments. You're on the council. What are you most proud of on the council?
Well, thinking out of the box again, I think I have the singular distinction of being the one council member who went out there and saved money for the city on his own. We had a warehouse full of electronic trash, essentially.
Right.
About 20 tons of it. And it had been languishing in that warehouse, which was leaky roofed and a really nasty place.
Right, these were all the old computers that the city had, and they couldn't use them anymore, and they just hauled them out there to the west side and put them in the warehouse. I remember
Exactly
that,
right. And we also had special trash pickups for electronic goods, so we had a
Right.
ton of television sets
Right.
as well, and stereo equipment and computers, et cetera, et cetera. Anything with a battery or a cord to it would go in that warehouse. And I asked the public works director, you know, what's going to happen? He said, well, we had an estimate done, and it'll be about $26,000. And I said, oh, good, we get $26,000 out of it. Let's make it happen, okay? He said, no.
the
The
other way
vendor
around.
came down. He wants us to he wants us to put it all on pallets, wrap it, and get it ready for him to take out, then he charges us $26,000. And that was the reason for it sitting there, is that, you know,
Right.
funding just wasn't there for it. So I thought about it for a while, and I contacted a friend of mine and said, in a nonprofit, and I said, can we make this happen? You get computer stuff all the time, and what do you do with it? And he said, well, we have a working relationship with Dell, and Dell either refurbishes, reuses, pulls parts out of it, or takes it to the, you know, to the recycling. And I said, well, you know, you get a fair amount of stuff, so would you be interested in 20 tons? He said, I don't know, I'm going down there tomorrow, I'll ask. Monday came around and he said, yeah, let's go for it. So we got, it's the Goodwill, as a matter of fact. We were just talking about that.
Right.
And the Goodwill would pull up a truck, you know, a trailer, and leave the trailer there, and we got prison labor to put the stuff on the pallets. And they were a great bunch of guys.
Right.
They really loved being out there.
Right.
And in the end, it cost us $500. And we got rid of all that stuff, and we have a working relationship until the end of time with Goodwill to take this stuff whenever we need it. Yeah.
Excellent.
So, you know, roughly $30,000 was saved.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What other things?
Well, I'm really still a neighborhood advocate. I
Right.
think that, you know, a lot of the strength of the city relies on the strengths of neighborhoods. And neighborhoods have to come together to, especially the crime situation, you know, to be more vigilant and look out for one another. And it's a real iffy thing depending on what neighborhood you're in. You know, some don't really look out the windows at all,
Right.
or don't say anything when they see something. And that's something we need to overcome. I continue to do that, and, you know, speaking to neighborhoods and saying, you know, here's what you need to do. It doesn't have to go as far as being a neighborhood watch program, but look out for one another.
Right.
And that's something that's really made a difference in the crime rate here, I think.
Right. And the way the district is configured now, town gown is probably a big issue in District 3.
Well, town gown is something that I was on from the beginning, and still am on. We just had a meeting last week, I think. And the issues change from time to time, but you have to remember that, you know, as far as student behavior goes, we have to, I guess, initiate the new students as they come in to say, here, you're moving into a neighborhood. If you're moving out to a single-family home, you're moving to a neighborhood not unlike the one your parents
Right.
have. Okay, so the expectations are pretty much what your parents would be.
Right.
Try to keep the noise down if you can, be reasonable. Try not to park in front of anybody's driveway.
Right.
Here's what the trash days are, you know, try not to, and at the end of the party, the next day, go 50 yards up one end of the street and the other end too, and,
Right.
and pick up the red cups for us, would you please?
Right.
Thank you.
The potty's in the house.
Well, yeah, well, that's not as prevalent as one might think, but
Right.
it is when it is
It's what we hear
noticed.
about a lot, though.
When it's noticed, it really raises, you know, some
Yeah.
eyebrows.
It seems like there's some progress, though, in terms of the relationship between the university and the city.
I think that really that's been an evolving thing over the past 8 or 10 years.
Right.
Is that the university has come to appreciate the city for more, you know, of what it can offer to the university, and the same goes vice versa. You know, there are a lot of things that the university offers to the city, and you can't really discount the amount of revenue that comes on students. You know, that's millions and millions of dollars that is put into our revenue stream. Yeah, it's
Right.
great.
Being election time, the rentals issue seems to pop up around election time all the time, it seems to me. The mayor right now has a new initiative about rentals, talking a lot about rentals. And there's a theory that maybe the tough rental legislation needs to just be applied to the college district, which would be in your district essentially. Any thoughts about that?
Well, I got this notification of yesterday's announcement.
Right.
I didn't get it until yesterday morning, so I was at another meeting and I couldn't attend that.
So he was sort of freelancing on that one, maybe.
But I read the entire thing. I
Yeah.
read the entire proposition, and I've done a bit of research. And for one thing, an overlay district can be struck down in a heartbeat because it can be easily challenged in court as being prejudicial to whatever the neighborhood is, or the other neighborhoods as well. There are successes that I've read about in rent control or rent stabilization, and there are utter failures. So we need to find out what the balances are, and again, look at what the demographics here are, and listen to the business community, and find a path that takes us to where we need to go.
Right.
But to have this pop up you know, on the eve of an election with 5 weeks before the election.
Right.
Nothing is going to be determined before then, and there may be a lot of talk about it, but the real research behind it is not going to happen, I think, with any of the council members.
Right.
And I hope those that are running for council really get a handle on this to find out what the real deal is.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
During your time on the council, crime is down significantly in Salisbury.
It is.
So that's all good news. But one of the things we're seeing here are these kids who are involved in these sort of petty crimes and nuisance crimes that are going on around town. A lot of focus on the kids, talk of a curfew, several meetings on that, public forums. Where are you on all that?
I've been to all the forums, and we talked about curfew easily a year ago, just in passing pretty much.
Right.
I do stand behind a curfew, but it cannot be a standalone thing. The whole idea behind curfew, and I've said this at the meetings as well, is I don't look at it as a punitive event, but more to identify kids who, well, find out why they're out there, take them home, find out what the living situation is, why the parents are not monitoring where kids are at 2 or 3 in the morning.
Right.
You know, the state's attorney said a few weeks ago at one of the meetings that he was out on a ride-along with the chief. It was 2 in the morning, and there's a 3-year-old standing on the sidewalk, and a 5-year-old, and an 8-year-old. And that's just totally unacceptable, just ridiculous. So we get into kids, excuse me.
And it's not necessarily unique to Salisbury.
Oh, no, not at all. But it is our problem.
Right.
And our problems, you know, if we have that lack of guidance, lack of good parenting perhaps, whether it's by design or just don't have the resources, we still need to address it. And I think one of the ways to address it is to find something for these kids to do and find a safe haven for them. When we had the Weed and Seed program from about 2000 to 2006, we got awards for that. It was great.
It's a great program.
Yeah, it was a wonderful program.
Yeah.
Put $1.2 million into the city for targeting issues like, you know, kids after-school programs. And a bunch of after-school programs popped up, and they were very successful. They kept kids off the streets. They gave them something to do. They tutored. It was wonderful. Everybody loved it. And then when the money dried up, they all went away.
Right.
Very many of them went away.
Right.
Very few. And I see that as like sort of a lack of engagement by, I don't want to point out to churches and nonprofits, but those would be the first ones I would think about when setting up a community gathering place for children.
Right.
And I think kids need to have that. When you think of what the, excuse me, what the stimulus is for a lot of kids today, it's what they see on TV, hear on the radio. And in my estimation, many of those behaviors are really unacceptable for real life. You know, it's television, it's fantasy, please.
It's entertainment, it's not something to be copied.
I would barely even put it as entertainment, but you know, it depends on your tastes.
Right. What do you hope to achieve in your second term?
Those neighborhood programs have to happen. They have to happen not only in areas that are prime for the sort of behavior that we're seeing, but they have to be all over the city. Those have to be made available to every kid in every corner of the city. Something to do after school that's constructive, instructional, and has good leadership in it, has good mentorship, if you will. Yeah.
Right.
They need a parent when there isn't a parent around, maybe sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything I forgot to ask? Any point you wanted to make? It?
Oh, what you forgot to ask.
Yeah, what I forgot to ask.
I really hope people get out there and do the vote. But you know,
turnout's going to be interesting.
It is.
The pool is a little bit smaller in all the areas, I think. So yeah.
It is indeed. You know, and I remember in the old elections, now if you will, there'd be a huge number of people that would put their hats in the ring, and then the primaries would sort that out a bit. But now we have no primaries, so it's straight to the vote. Right. Yeah. But be educated, you know, and look at the issues in the city. And as far as my candidacy, you know, look at what I've done and what I can do. You know, I have good leadership skills. I have a lot of experience, and I think both inside and outside of the box.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming in today.
Well, thank you for having me, Greg.
He's Tim Spies. He's running for City Council in District 3. He currently represents District 2. He's at the end of his first term and running here for re-election, essentially.
Yep.
Thank you, Tim. Greg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent newspaper with another edition of 101 right here on PAC 14.
First Shore Federal is proud to support PAC 14 and one-on-one. We'd encourage every business to support PAC 14 and pick a program and support it, and let's make a difference.